I don't know who built this spaghetti mess, but we're simplifying things around here. My nephew's going to be handling operations moving forward. That's what he said. Word for word. No handshake. No smile. Just that smug little upward curl at the corner of his mouth like he'd just fired the barista for misspelling his name on a latte. I was still seated, blinking, trying to process if this was real or just some awkward attempt at a power move. Then he leaned forward, elbows on the desk like he was laying down poker cards, and delivered the line I'll never forget: babysit my golden boy or resign. I didn't laugh. I didn't argue. I didn't even blink. I just stood up, reached for the coat hanging behind the door, and walked out. Didn't slam the door, didn't leave a note, didn't throw a single verbal grenade over my shoulder. I gave that man exactly what he expected: quiet compliance. Or at least, that's what it looked like. Thing is, you don't stay 11 years at a company like this, through 3 acquisitions, a complete pivot, a rebrand, and 2 lawsuits, without learning that power doesn't sit in titles. It lives in credentials. And baby, I had all of them. You see, I wasn't some middle-tier admin assistant juggling calendars and ordering cupcakes for birthdays. I was the systems architect. First person they brought in when this startup was just a skeleton crew eating Chipotle off milk crates. I set up their cloud environments, wrote their onboarding protocols, built the internal billing sync when the first third-party API flaked out during our series around. I handled compliance before they knew what compliance meant. When leadership changed, I was the only one who could explain where the backups lived, how payroll linked to the time tracking system, what to do if the dev server failed. But to him, I was legacy clutter, an outdated relic from the pre-vision era. And his nephew, some wet-nosed undergrad with a LinkedIn profile full of buzzwords and no job longer than 6 months, was going to streamline everything. It was almost funny watching him talk about streamlining while his Google Calendar had 6 overlapping recurring meetings and 2 different Slack logins. But I didn't correct him. Not when he called me Erica by mistake the first time. Not when he mispronounced Kubernetes during an all-hands. Not even when he gave his nephew a laptop that didn't meet minimum specs for half the software we used. I said nothing, because I didn't need to. What he didn't realize, what no one did, is that for 11 years, I didn't just run the systems. I designed them. And when you design something, you get to bake in contingencies. Quiet ones, visible ones, not malicious, not illegal, just structural. Smart architecture, redundancy, fail-safes, permissions that don't look like permissions, flags that trigger on patterns, and a little clause I added to our own access control protocol during the first acquisition, that all privilege transfers across key systems require the confirmed approval of the primary admin, a role only revocable with written consent. Mine. I kept that clause buried, 3 pages deep in a policy doc no one but me ever read. Not even legal, because back then we didn't have legal. And by the time we did, I was already the one they called for any questions anyway. So when I walked out of that office, past reception, past the coffee machine that never got fixed, past the lobby where my name was still on the Employee of the Month plaque from 2018, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. He thought I left quietly. He thought I'd just given up. He thought his nephew was going to coast into my seat and start pressing buttons like this was a video game. But I left something behind. Not a resignation letter, not a keycard, just silence. And buried beneath that silence were the systems. The real ones. The ones no one had ever questioned because they'd always just worked. Until now, they didn't even deactivate my email. It was the first sign that no one upstairs had the slightest idea what I actually did. I expected some knee-jerk remove access protocol, maybe a passive-aggressive HR message about transitioning responsibilities. Hell, I even half expected some weird ceremonial send-off with stale cupcakes and fake smiles in the break room. But no, just silence. Ghosted by the very company I built my spine around. 2 days after I left, I checked my inbox out of morbid curiosity. Still active. Still getting CC'd on automated alerts from tools only I ever configured, billing errors, failed API syncs, a permissions escalation warning from the client sandbox environment. Nobody noticed. No Slack message. No offboarding checklist. No last day survey. Nothing. I was airbrushed out of the mural without so much as a wipe of the cloth. The golden boy, whose name, I should clarify, is Dylan, because of course it is, told the rest of the team I left on bad terms. Said I had emotional baggage and struggled with change. He even said I locked him out of files out of spite, which is hilarious, considering the only thing I locked were my own drawers, and even that was just muscle memory from watching sticky-fingered interns steal dongles. From what I could see in Slack's public channels, Dylan had been given a few freelancers to help migrate operations. None of them lasted more than a week. The first one posted in the general channel asking, "Where's the documentation for payroll sync?" and got radio silence. The second one tried to initiate a password reset for the central billing system and got blocked for unauthorized device access. The third, she asked too many questions and was quietly removed from the workspace. I watched it unfold in real time. No one knew where the vault keys were because no one had asked me. Assumed I was just another cog. A cog they could toss and replace with a shinier, cheaper gear. On the third morning, I logged in once, just once. Not to meddle, not to sabotage, just to leave a digital signature that said, "I was here and I left on my terms." I quietly removed myself from the operations Slack channel. That's it. No parting shot, no cryptic emoji, just clean removal. But in doing so, I noticed something. My name was still listed in the workspace settings as the primary owner. Not admin, not user, owner. Same thing on the billing dashboard, same on payroll, same on the internal permissions database. Every tool, every integrated platform, every microservice we ever duct taped together in the name of scalability. My credentials sat untouched. My email was the failsafe. My MFA token was still binding. Not because I was trying to hold power, because no one ever built an offboarding plan for the person who wrote the offboarding plan. And suddenly, something shifted in me. It wasn't joy. It wasn't pride. It was something colder. A strange, quiet betrayal because they didn't just underestimate me. They forgot I was even there. 11 years of being the person they called at midnight when payroll failed. The person who worked through Christmas to restore backups. Person who stayed behind after layoffs to keep things moving while execs flew to Hawaii for strategy retreats. They erased all that with one smug directive and zero follow-up. So I sat there in my apartment watching them flail. Watching Dylan ask the wrong questions to the wrong people. Watching automated reminders pile up in my inbox like little digital ghosts whispering, "They don't know what they're doing." I made no move. Not yet. There was no need. Because here's the thing about legacy systems: when they break, they don't explode. They unravel. And I'd tied every knot. Dylan kicked off his first official week with a live client demo. And by demo, I mean an overpolished slide deck filled with buzzwords and animated GIFs of pipelines he couldn't explain if you held him over a tank of sharks. He strutted into the main conference room like he was Steve Jobs reincarnated through a vape pen. Told the client rep they were about to witness the new direction of operational synergy, and then clicked into the dashboard I built from scratch. The screen turned white, then blinked. Then error 503. He clicked again, harder this time, as if aggression would reverse the void. The client's smile tightened. Someone coughed. And that's when the panic began to leak from his armpits. "Try refreshing?" The client offered, with the kind of Midwestern politeness that masks quiet horror. "Oh yeah, that's just the cache," Dylan muttered, jabbing F5 like he was performing CPR on a dying hamster. Still nothing. The dashboard was a front-end shell. A cosmetic interface. The real data, our infrastructure, client nodes, staging environments, all the pipework beneath was gated, not locked maliciously, just structured under the permissions architecture I'd designed. The kind of design where elevated access needed more than a password, needed trust. A trust coded into roles, lifecycle events, and one little line in a forgotten setup screen, pending admin confirmation. Guess who the system still recognized as primary admin? Not Dylan. After the demo imploded, I watched from the sidelines, from my couch, eating leftover Thai and reading Slack snips forwarded by an old QA buddy. Dylan was furious. Loud, red-faced furious. Cornered the IT contractor in the hallway. They'd brought one in from a third-party firm just to accelerate the transition, and started barking orders like he'd just watched The Wolf of Wall Street for the first time. "I need super admin privileges. Today." Contractor blinked. "Those can only be provisioned by the current system owner." "I am the system owner." "No, sir. You're the team lead for ops. I'm the director's nephew. That's not a valid access role." He tried going through HR. They didn't know what he was talking about. He tried emailing the CTO, who didn't answer. He even tried pulling rank with the help desk by tagging every ticket urgent and threatening to escalate, which is adorable. considering the help desk was three guys in Arizona who knew damn well who kept their VPN from collapsing every quarter. One of the most beautiful things I've ever seen was the screenshot someone leaked from the internal permissions dashboard. Every tool, billing, payroll, server clusters, demo environments showed the same banner across the top. Access change pending, awaiting confirmation from primary admin. He couldn't even see the toggle to grant himself permission. The button wasn't there, because the button didn't exist unless I was the one clicking it. The thing about these systems is, they don't yell when something's wrong. They don't crash dramatically with sirens and sparks. They just slow, quietly, relentlessly, and soon the little delays started stacking. Invoices that didn't push to QuickBooks, contract approvals stuck in a pending state, client records not syncing. The director kept telling people it was a transitional hiccup. Dylan started blaming legacy rot, but the clients didn't care. They wanted numbers. They wanted access. They wanted results. I sipped my lukewarm coffee and watched the slow, delightful entropy. Not because I wanted revenge, but because, deep down, I knew this was the only way they'd ever understand what I'd actually done for them. Not the titles, not the ticket resolutions, the invisible work, the glue, and now it was peeling. On Monday, someone from accounting posted in Slack, "Hey, anyone know why payroll's throwing credential errors?" No reply. An hour later, second message pinged, getting unverified identity flags on all batch runs. Was there a change to the admin cert? Still no reply. Then came the third, more desperate. "Okay, this is blocking payroll submission. Need confirmation from whoever manages the API token." Dylan responded with a single sentence. "We're streamlining access, should be resolved shortly." But it wasn't. The system rejected every single submission, company-wide. Full-time, contractors, offshore teams, everyone. The processor flagged the issue as API authentication mismatch, which is just corporate speak for, "We don't know who you are and you're not allowed in here." The problem? The credential the platform trusted, the one they were calling admin cert Emily, was never rotated, because no one knew it existed, or more specifically, no one knew how many layers deep it went. Not just in payroll, but in every integrated system we ever touched, was the same cert tied to billing automation. The one that synced invoice triggers with usage logs, routed purchase orders, and pinged the finance bot to remind execs when client renewals were about to lapse. On Tuesday, that system lit up with a bright red header, "Billing automation disabled. Invalid API key. 3 invoices failed, then 9, then 17. A vendor called, then a client, and someone from legal sent a vague message about potential service disruption risk. Still, the director didn't budge. Emily was just the paperwork person, he said during the morning huddle, waving off the alerts like gnats. "This is just a little dust settling while we modernize." Paperwork person. That's what he called me. That's what he told the whole ops team right before assigning Dylan full-stack transition authority, as if a job title could overwrite every line of config, every buried rule, every flag I'd ever set. But you know what made it better? The message. It started showing up in the corner of every dashboard, small at first, almost polite. Primary admin, unverified transfer. Confirmation required. Most folks didn't even notice it. Those who did thought it was just a UI bug. One of the designers even posted a screenshot asking if it was a leftover element from a deprecated module. It wasn't. It was a quiet alarm bell. A digital whisper. The clause I buried in our system's architecture years ago was beginning to surface. I designed it to be non-intrusive, just a signal that privilege handoff hadn't completed. The kind of thing that only escalates if ignored long enough. And they were ignoring it, because that's what happens when people mistake silence for absence, when they think a machine will keep running just because it's running now, when they think the architect is just the one who picked the curtains. Dylan, meanwhile, was spiraling. He tried bypassing the billing API altogether by uploading CSVs manually. It failed. He tried calling the payroll vendor to re-verify credentials. They asked for the original provisioning ID and cert token. He didn't know either. He tried reaching out to IT. They escalated it to compliance. Compliance flagged the attempt and froze his access. He was now effectively locked out of 2 core systems he was overseeing. And still, they didn't call me. They held emergency meetings, sent memos, tried to blame an unnamed legacy administrator for lack of documentation. They wrote my name in lowercase, like I was a footnote in a problem they couldn't solve. They were starting to feel it now. Not the crash, not yet, but the silence between clicks. The way the systems hesitated. The way questions began piling up in private channels. The way someone finally whispered, "Wait, didn't Emily set this up?" And in that moment, somewhere between the seventh failed invoice and the second missed payroll, I felt it. Vindication, not loud, not smug. Just cold, heavy, earned. Because when you do invisible work, are only 2 times anyone ever notices, when it's flawless, or when it stops. Wednesday morning started with a quiet kind of chaos, not the slam your desk and yell chaos. The kind where people stop making eye contact in the halls, where Slack goes silent for just a little too long, where the calendar mysteriously fills up with private, urgent blocks no one talks about. The CTO finally got dragged in. He was one of the few decent ones left. Shared a bottle of bourbon once during a server room all-nighter years ago, back before the IPO scramble turned everyone into walking NDAs. He wasn't incompetent, just insulated. He assumed things worked because they had worked. And when they didn't, he expected someone below him to fix it before he had to care. But now the fires were creeping under his office door. Payroll still wasn't sending. Billing was frozen. 2 internal dashboards were down. The demo sandbox, which Dylan insisted was under active revision, hadn't loaded in 3 days. Clients were calling. Vendors were pissed. Finance couldn't close the month because nothing reconciled. So the CTO called an emergency war room session and told the engineering team to do whatever it takes to restore admin control. They started with the basics: password resets, account recovery, superadmin backdoor tokens. Every single attempt bounced, or action not permitted without primary admin confirmation. They tried migrating accounts, shifting privileges to a new email alias, provisioning from scratch. It triggered an instant compliance lockout. Error: privilege inheritance denied. Admin handoff incomplete. They even attempted a direct override via backend SQL patching, which should have been impossible without root access, but they had a dev with old keys from the pre-acquisition days. The patch went through. System rolled it back within 6 seconds. My code, my rollback logic, designed for safety, never used maliciously. But when the system senses a mismatch in admin assignment without the proper chain of custody signature, it self-corrects. They couldn't brute force their way in because I hadn't built a wall. I'd built geometry. And Dylan, he was cracking. He stormed into the engineers' open workspace and started accusing them of sabotage, that they were loyal to the old guard. Called one guy a legacy sympathizer, whatever that meant. Told another she was intentionally delaying fixes to make him look bad. She laughed in his face. He didn't like that. By lunch, 3 engineers had filed HR complaints against him. 2 refused to work on ops systems at all until leadership clarified roles. 1 just packed up and left midday, flipping the bird at the security cam on the way out. That's when I got the message. It was from Marla, ex-QA lead, now freelancing out in Oregon. We hadn't talked in 6 months. She messaged me with no hello, no small talk. "Hey, did you see this glitch?" Attached was a screenshot from the client dashboard. Right below the failed load message in tiny gray text: primary admin, Emily K. at transfer status, pending. Override available, no. I stared at it. Not because I didn't expect it, because someone outside had finally seen it. She followed up with, "You didn't do this, right?" And I typed back, "Nope, it's just waiting." That's all I said, because that's all it was. Not broken, not hacked, not sabotaged. Just waiting for someone to ask, for someone to remember who lit the lights in the first place. The deeper they dug, the more obvious it became. Every fix required my fingerprint. Not metaphorically, literally. Systems were built with an approval chain tied to the original architecture. The devs figured it out by late afternoon, and one posted in the internal chat, "This isn't a bug, it's inheritance logic. Whoever built this made themselves the keystone." Dylan's only response: find her and make her undo it. He never said ask, never said call, never said apologize, just make her. And that's when I leaned back, took a sip of my coffee, and let the smile form. Weren't panicking because the system failed. They were panicking because, for the first time, it refused to recognize them. And that meant, whether they admitted it or not, they'd finally remembered who built the damn thing. Friday, 10:03 a.m. The client was already on the call, one of the big ones. A Fortune 100 name with a procurement budget that could fund 3 startups and still have money left for a yacht party. This was the demo Dylan had been hyping all week, when he swore would cement our dominance in integrated solutions. The one that required a seamless walkthrough of our dev environment, reporting tools, and billing logic. Except the environment was empty. Not glitched or half-loaded blank. No data, no templates, no dummy accounts. Just a login screen that accepted credentials and then looped back to a white screen with a single blinking cursor. A digital void. The sales lead stalled, sweating through her blouse under ring lights, rambling about modular flexibility and clean interface design. The client smiled politely, clearly wondering if we just demoed a screensaver. Dylan stepped in with his usual improv theater. We've streamlined things to such a degree that what you're seeing is actually a dynamic load shell. It's designed to build live, custom to each client. The client asked, "So, where's the data?" Dylan clicked, and then clicked again, harder, like the force of his finger might summon content from the void. Nothing. Finally, one of the backend devs quietly stepped into the call's Slack channel and typed, "Is anyone else seeing access denied?" Awaiting admin reauthorization across the top. Then another posted a screenshot from the error logs. Same banner, staging access restricted. Primary admin confirmation required for environment provisioning. A pause. Then someone else pasted a system log entry. Line 94, last verified admin. Emily K. at line 95, transfer status. Incomplete line 96, override protocol disabled. That's when the panic broke through the surface. Slack erupted. Internal alerts flared. Phones started ringing on desks. Someone, probably from the finance side, walked into the demo room and whispered in Dylan's ear. He paled. A senior engineer posted, Emily's still listed as primary on the access management console. Her permissions are untouched. Her MFA key is still valid. Another reply followed within seconds. Wait, she built that tool, didn't she? That tool. The one they'd bragged about during last year's tech conference. The one that automated permissions handoffs and lifecycle tracking across internal systems. The one I pitched, coded, tested, implemented over 8 months, while Dylan was still trying to figure out where the Ethernet ports went. I didn't just build it, I designed it around trust, around accountability, around the idea that access should only be granted by the person who knows what's behind each door. And they never revoked me, not out of malice, not out of strategy, out of sheer, unfiltered ignorance. They thought if I walked out with my coat and didn't scream on the way down the elevator, it meant I didn't matter anymore. That systems would just auto-magically forget me, that all those access policies I wrote, enforced, would just dissolve once I stopped showing up to meetings. Except the systems didn't forget, because I didn't build them to forget. I built them to protect. And now, in the middle of a multi-million-dollar demo, those same systems were asking a single question. Where's Emily? The call ended early. Politely, but awkwardly. Client said they had internal reviews to complete. Dylan nodded, eyes glassy. After the call, a VP pinged the entire ops team. Who the hell is still allowing Emily's credentials to function? The answer? The system itself. It wasn't just some rogue credential dangling in a dusty corner. My email, my certificate chain, my fingerprint, they were the foundation. The system saw no transfer, no revocation. No updated authorization file with my signature hash. The system, I was still admin. And now, the people were starting to see it too. One manager posted in the all-staff channel, "Why wasn't this transition confirmed? Who was supposed to handle the revocation?" Silence. Then another, "Shouldn't the director have ensured the access handoff was done properly?" More silence. Dylan tried to regain control, tried to spin the narrative, said something about undocumented workflows and legacy code complications. But the damage was done. Justice wasn't loud. It wasn't theatrical. It didn't come with courtroom monologues or viral videos. It came with a blinking cursor, a silent environment, and a name, mine, that no one had thought to delete. Because when you build the house, you don't need to knock. The walls already remember you. My phone lit up like a slot machine in hell. 38 missed calls, director, legal, CTO, unknown numbers from area codes I didn't recognize, probably the parent company's HQ out in Chicago. Even Dylan, the golden boy himself, had left 3 voicemails in a row that started with fake calm and ended in breathless desperation. I didn't answer a single one, not out of pettiness, not even out of vengeance. I didn't answer because there was nothing to say. The system was working exactly as designed. They weren't calling because something broke. They were calling because they finally realized what they'd never noticed, that I wasn't replaceable. Not because I was special, not because I had secrets, but because I had responsibility, the real kind. The kind that gets quietly baked into every process, every approval path, every access rule. The kind no one appreciates until it stops. They called and called. I let it ring while I poured myself a second cup of coffee and sliced a peach from the bowl by the window. That he was quiet that day. Unusually cool for mid-June. My inbox pinged, finally. An email from a partner-level lawyer from the parent company. Subject line, Critical Systems Access Inquiry. I opened it, 3 short sentences. We are aware of an unresolved primary admin transition in your previous systems. Can we schedule a time to clarify intent and procedure? Please let us know your availability within the next 24 hours. Polite, direct, careful. Not a demand, a request, I smiled. The thing about enterprise systems, especially ones tied to compliance, is that they require audit trails, sign-offs, documentation. And somewhere, in the dusty, forgotten attic of the company's Confluence wiki, buried under project plans and half-written policy docs, was a file I had written 6 years ago. System Access Lifecycle Protocol, Rev. 1.4 in. It was the clause I'd crafted back when we were just starting to onboard enterprise clients. I'd written it to prevent exactly this kind of chaos, in case a bad actor ever got elevated access without proper review. No one argued at the time. They were just happy someone was thinking ahead. It read, all administrative privilege transfers across critical infrastructure systems shall require written confirmation from the designated primary admin. No exceptions shall be granted, including for personnel changes, acquisitions, or role eliminations without this approval. The primary admin designation remains binding until revoked in writing by the admin themselves. It was signed by me, dated, countersigned by the original CTO, still active, still enforceable, still embedded in every compliance packet the company sent out to vendors and enterprise clients because it was part of their sales pitch. We have strong internal controls. We follow lifecycle access procedures. Our infrastructure is protected by multi-layer privilege validation. All true because I made it true, but they never thought to undo it, because undoing it would have meant actually understanding what I built. Now their own lawyer, couldn't bypass it. They tried. God, did they try. I heard later from an old DevOps friend that they pulled the full escalation chain, emergency credentials, override flags, rolling back to pre-update snapshots. All of it failed. The system rejected the override attempts because they were being made from accounts without the proper transfer protocol completed. The timestamp showed no signature. The audit log showed no confirmation. Just a gap, a silence, and in that silence, my name. One of the engineers posted a log snippet in the internal chat, and someone forwarded it to me. I read it slowly. Access attempt unauthorized. Reason, privilege transfer incomplete. Resolution path, primary admin Emily K. approval required. They were trapped in a system they didn't understand, governed by rules they'd never read, held together by a name they didn't respect until now. I didn't have to lift a finger. I didn't have to scream. I just had to wait. Cold control isn't about revenge. It's about knowing the exact moment when people realize you were the only thing between them and the fall. And that moment had arrived. I set down my coffee, opened a clean document, and started writing my terms. The email came at 7:42 a.m. sharp, with all the precision and dread of a court summons wrapped in a bow. Subject, request for strategic consultation, time sensitive. It was short. No attachments, no fluff. Just a direct, carefully worded message from a man whose name I recognized instantly. Colin Brandt, Senior VP of Operations at the parent company. Not some peon, not a middle manager on damage control duty. This was a man whose title came with multiple executive assistants and a standing invite to closed-door merger briefings. He didn't waste time. Ms. K, we understand there may have been oversights in recent administrative transitions. I'm reaching out on behalf of our executive team to explore a consulting engagement to assist in smoothing the current infrastructure handover. We believe your knowledge and prior work are integral to resolving current system-level access issues. Your assistance would be greatly appreciated. Please advise on your availability at your earliest convenience. Regards, Colin Brandt, SVP, Strategic Ops Apex Group Holdings. Translation. We finally realized who kept the lights on, and now the lights are flickering. I didn't respond right away. I let the silence sit a little longer, just enough to remind them who was holding the hourglass. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. This time, a call, unknown number. I let it ring. Then another email. Emily, apologies for the persistence. If there's a preferred channel, I'm happy to coordinate around you. Prepared to offer a short-term consulting agreement, competitive compensation, no relocation required. Full executive visibility and operational autonomy to assist in resolving current system integrity issues. Just need your word to begin. There it was. The shift from please help to you'll have visibility. They were desperate, but they were smart enough to use the right language. This wasn't about plugging a leak anymore. It was about navigating a full-blown infrastructure collapse without triggering a compliance audit or another client loss. They didn't want help. They wanted me. So I replied. 3 lines. Colin, I don't do babysitting, but I do accept C-suite authority. Emily, his reply came 12 minutes later. No pushback, no haggling. Just an acknowledgement that told me everything I needed to know about the current temperature inside the boardroom. Understood. Let's schedule a call to discuss appropriate title and scope. I didn't need to read between the lines. They were done pretending. The director's bluff had collapsed. Dylan's ego was bleeding out somewhere in a stairwell. Legal had run out of fingers to point, and the engineers were probably sitting in a war room surrounded by post-it notes, wondering how they'd been stuck rebuilding a cathedral with no floor plans and no holy water. At the center of it all was a blinking error message they couldn't bypass. Primary admin confirmation required to authorize privilege transfer. Me. The only way forward was me, not a password reset, not a compliance patch, not a consultant flown in from San Francisco with a portfolio full of buzzwords and zero history. They needed the original signature, and I hadn't given it, not yet. They could stall the clients. They could juggle internal panic. None of it mattered until I sat down and typed the words that would authorize the transfer. One field, one confirm button, because the clause in the architecture doc wasn't just a formality, it was a keystone. And without my confirmation, the system wouldn't just limp. It would halt in carefully staged pieces. It was never about crashing everything. I didn't build a bomb. I built control. And now, for the first time in my entire career, I had it. Strategic, clean, fully documented. I had waited patiently while they tripped over their own arrogance, while they let Dylan fumble through systems he couldn't spell, while the director smirked and said I was just the paperwork person. Now they were on my schedule. Now they were offering me a seat at the table. And I wasn't coming back to help. I was coming back to own. The audit was scheduled for Monday, 9:00 a.m. sharp, not because it had to be, but because I wanted it to be. It was the time slot they used to reserve for their leadership sync, back when they still believed Dylan knew how to lead and the director thought charisma could outrun competence. Now that calendar block bore a new name, Infrastructure Integrity Review led by EK. Every department was required to attend, on video or in person. Legal, ops, dev, compliance, finance. They all logged in. Quiet. Nervous. Pretending to sip coffee like this was just another Monday. I waited until every seat was filled. Then I logged in. The moment I entered the root dashboard, it happened. A banner unfurled across every shared screen. Subtle, corporate blue, no sound, no flashing red. Just one message in clean sans serif text, primary admin transferred. Confirmation, Emily K., Executive Administrator, and with it, access flowed. Systems reinitialized, billing restored. Payroll unlocked. Demo environment repopulated in under 90 seconds. Notifications stacked like dominoes falling into place. It was as if the company exhaled all at once. Except for Dylan. His screen froze, then blinked. A red bar appeared, access denied. Permissions revoked. His face, I'm told, went pale, then flushed so fast it looked like someone slapped him with a color gradient. He scrambled, clicked, tried to Ruth, even opened a private Slack with IT. Response came back instantly. Your account no longer has administrative privileges. Please contact your department lead, which was, by then, me. He stormed out of the Zoom without a word. Not that it mattered. The director didn't even look up. He just sat in the back corner of the conference room, arms folded, face blank. I caught the faintest twitch in his jaw when another message dropped in the executive channel, timestamped and cold. Director Thompson has been reassigned pending the outcome of internal review. Interim authority will be exercised by EK, effective immediately. No applause, no victory speech, just the quiet shuffling of power being corrected. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I walked through the audit calmly, methodically. Outlined the failures, documented the missteps, explained what went wrong and what needed to change. I answered every question like I'd never left, because functionally I hadn't. The systems always knew who was in charge. Now the people did too. At the end of the meeting, Colin, the partner-level exec who'd begged me to return, asked if I wanted to say a few words. I said only this: we don't need to rebuild from scratch. We just need to stop pretending the foundation isn't already here. And I logged off. That afternoon, I arrived at the office. Security waved me in without a badge. My name was already in the system. A new desk had been set up, glass walls, corner view, no clutter. On the monitor, a clean dashboard showed everything humming again. Stable, green, alive. A manila envelope sat on the desk. Inside, an updated employment agreement. Title: Executive Administrator Infrastructure Operations, Authority, Full Lifecycle Control, Reporting, Direct to Board. I signed it with the same pen I used to build it all those years ago. This place was still just an idea in someone's pitch deck, and no one knew my name. Now they knew. The golden boy, gone, scrubbed from access logs. His laptop was reassigned to a new junior dev starting next week. The director, demoted, reassigned to special projects. The kind of title that comes with no real power and a slow clock to retirement. I didn't destroy them. I didn't need to, because I never fought for revenge. I fought for accuracy. And now, accurately, I was back. Not as a babysitter, as the one who built the house, and made damn sure the locks still worked. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.